Scientists just discovered something in space that shouldn't exist. Deep within the cold silence of the cosmos, beyond the reach of any telescope ever built, something ancient and incomprehensible was waiting. Not a planet. Not a star. Not a black hole devouring light and time. Something else entirely. Something that made the most brilliant minds on Earth stop breathing for a full 10 seconds when the data appeared on their screens. An ocean. A vast, impossibly real ocean, stretching across 200 million light-years of space, suspended in the darkness between galaxies, older than any world ever recorded, older than the first stars that burned and died before our sun was even a thought. And Dr. Elena Vazquez, astrophysicist, NASA mission commander, the woman who had dedicated 31 years of her life to searching the sky, looked at that data and whispered the only thing that made sense in that moment. We were never alone. The discovery came without warning on a Tuesday morning in November. Elena was at the Deep Space Signal Center in New Mexico, coffee going cold beside her keyboard, when the Deep Field Array registered a gravitational anomaly unlike anything in the catalog database of the universe. Her colleague Dr. James Park burst through the door behind her, still in his running clothes, tablet pressed against his chest like a shield. "Elena," he said breathlessly, "tell me you're seeing what I'm seeing." She was already seeing it. The data stream showed a body of liquid, hydrogen-based, ionically rich, thermodynamically impossible by every known law of cosmic physics, suspended in the void between the Hercules and Leo constellations. It was warm. In a universe that preferred absolute cold and absolute silence, this ocean was warm. The readings pulsed like something breathing. Within 48 hours, every space agency on Earth had verified the discovery. The European Space Observatory confirmed the spectral analysis. The Chinese National Space Administration cross-referenced 3 separate gravitational lensing surveys. Even the private deep space telescopes orbiting beyond Jupiter locked onto the coordinates and returned the same staggering truth. This was not an artifact. This was not interference. This was not a mistake made by tired scientists staring too long into the dark. The ocean was real, and it was enormous, and the longer they looked at it, the more it seemed to look back. Elena volunteered for the mission before the proposal was even written. She sat in a conference room at NASA headquarters, surrounded by generals, politicians, and 12 of the world's leading physicists, and made the argument she had rehearsed her entire career for. "We built the horizon," she said, pressing her palms flat against the cold table. "We built it for exactly this moment. To go further than anyone has gone before. To answer the question that every human being who ever looked up at the stars was really asking." General Marcus Webb leaned forward. "You're talking about a 2-year journey through uncharted deep space, Doctor." "I'm talking," Elena replied, voice calm as the surface of something very deep, "about the most important voyage in the history of our species." The room was quiet for a long time. Then Webb signed the authorization. The Horizon launched on a gray dawn in March, cutting through Earth's atmosphere with a sound like the sky being torn open. On board were 6 crew members: Elena, James, 2 aerospace engineers named Sasha and Yuri, a biologist named Dr. Priya Menon whose entire career had been spent studying extremophiles in deep ocean trenches, and a young pilot named Kale who had never once in his life stopped believing that humanity was not the most interesting thing in the universe. They watched Earth shrink to a pale blue point through the rear viewport, and no one spoke for a very long time. Priya pressed her fingers to the glass. "I spent 20 years studying life in the darkest, most crushing, most impossible environment on our planet," she said softly. Every time I found something alive where nothing should be alive, I thought, if life can survive here, it can survive anywhere. She turned back to the group, her eyes bright. Now we're going to find out if I was right. The journey through deep space was not peaceful. In the 5th month, the Horizon's navigation array detected a massive gravitational disruption ahead, a cluster of dead stars, dense and dark, their pull invisible but absolute. Kale worked the controls with the concentration of a surgeon, threading the ship through corridors of collapsed space that should have been impassable. The hull groaned. Lights flickered. James gripped his armrest and looked at Elena. "Should we be more scared than we are right now?" he asked. "Probably," she said, not looking up from her instruments. The ship came through intact, trembling, but whole. Then came the first night they saw it with their own eyes. Not on instruments, not through spectral analysis, not as numbers cascading down a monitor. They came around the dark side of a dead galaxy, and there it was, stretching from the upper edge of their viewport to the lower, horizon to horizon and far beyond, a luminous, shimmering, impossible body of cosmic fluid, lit from somewhere deep within its own heart, casting pale gold and deep violet light across the faces of 6 stunned human beings in a spacecraft smaller than a school bus. Kale cut the engines without being asked. No one had told him to. It simply seemed wrong to move in that moment. "My God," Sasha whispered. Elena said nothing. She was crying, silently, the way people cry when something is so beautiful it breaks the part of you that thought beauty had limits. Priya's sensors began returning data that rewrote biology in real time. The ocean was not sterile. Within its upper ionic layers, complex molecular chains were assembling and disassembling in patterns too structured to be accidental, too rhythmic to be chemical, too vast and purposeful to be anything other than what it unmistakably was. Life. Not life as they understood it, not cells, not DNA, not proteins folding and unfolding in the dark. Something different, something that existed on a scale that made every living thing on Earth look like a single sentence in a book of infinite pages. James stared at his readouts with the expression of a man who had just realized the universe had been patient with humanity for a very long time. "It's not waiting for us to find it," he said quietly. "It already knows we're here." Elena made the decision that history would remember. Against protocol, against orders that had been transmitted from Earth 3 days earlier, she suited up, stepped into the atmospheric probe capsule, and descended alone into the upper boundary layer of the cosmic ocean. The liquid parted around her capsule like a curtain being drawn back by invisible hands. The light was extraordinary, deep amber at the edges, shading to brilliant white at the center, with movements far below that were slow, enormous, deliberate. And then, unmistakably, something shifted in response to her presence. The molecular patterns in the fluid reorganized around the capsule. Not randomly. Not by diffusion. By intention. Elena pressed both hands against the glass and felt something she had not felt since she was a child, lying on her back in a field in New Mexico, staring up at the stars for the first time, the sensation of being genuinely, completely, overwhelmingly small. And understood. "Hello," she whispered into the void. The signal they received in return took 37 days to decode. It was not in any language. It was not in mathematics as humans defined it. It was something else, something that carried in its structure the entire compressed history of an intelligence that had been alive since before Earth's sun ignited. When the translation algorithm finally produced its closest human language approximation, the message was delivered to Elena in the mission briefing room by a very pale and trembling James Park. She read it twice. Then she looked up at the ceiling for a long moment, the way people look up when they are trying to hold themselves together. "What does it say?" Cale asked from the doorway. Elena lowered the tablet. Her voice, when she finally spoke, was steady and quiet and full of something that no instrument had ever been built to measure. "It says," she began, "we have been watching your small blue world for a very long time. We are glad you finally found your way here. Welcome to the ocean. You were always expected." The horizon turned toward home, carrying something heavier and more luminous than any cargo a spacecraft had ever carried before, not samples, not data, not proof, but a new understanding of what it meant to exist in this universe. That humanity was not a mistake. That the cosmos was not indifferent. That somewhere between the stars, in an ocean older than time, something vast and warm and patient had always known we were coming. And as Earth grew slowly brighter in the viewport, blue and fragile and impossibly beautiful against the dark, Elena Vazquez understood at last that the greatest discovery was not the ocean itself. It was the answer to the question every human being had ever whispered into the night sky. We are not alone. We never were.